Welcome everybody to PATCHCAST. In this video, we're going to be tiering all of the mid laners in patch 26.15. Unfortunately, my co-host AJ couldn't be here because we couldn't find a suitable time to record together. But today, honestly, I'm gonna just say it out there. Right, what are you doing? The patch is so small, so it's not going to be that big of a deal anyway. So hardly any mid lane changes. There's a few champs that we're really going to need to talk about. Locke, Riven, Sylas, Naafiri. And I want to also do a little bit of recalibration to see if the tier list that we made last time actually held up properly. And especially if we solved the higher tiers. Because since the meta is not going to be changing too much and it's a pretty still patch like that, there won't be too many changes. So we really got to figure out if the top tiers are actually placed properly. So let's actually start with a bit of recap, right? And I think the first champ that we need to recap is Locke, because Locke actually got an immense amount of changes. And we put Locke previously in the S+ tier. We didn't put him in the OP tier because he did get some changes. He did get some nerfs, and we thought that he wouldn't necessarily be OP, but rather S+. And I think that honestly, we were kind of right and kind of wrong. The reality is, Locke is still really strong, like really strong. But I would say that he's probably OP tier levels of strength. Since the last time we recorded, I didn't get any Locke games in. I've actually gotten some Locke games in since then. And I think that Locke is an immensely strong early game champ. Like, the amount of damage that you deal the moment you land these 3 nails onto someone, and you can literally 100 to 0 them. And the kill ranges are pretty bullshit. But one thing to really keep in mind about Locke is that this champion skills like he skills fine, but he's just really hard to play in the mid to late game. Like, this champion in the late game is so hard to play because it's almost impossible to land 3 nails onto a key target without getting jumped on by enemy peelers or supportive champs. It's very challenging to play this champion in the late game. So he does fall off definitely, but the amount of power that he has in his early game is that strong that I reckon he was actually an OP level champion, but he's getting some changes. He is getting his base HP nuked by 35, and don't think that this is nothing, guys. 35 less base HP is an immense number. Riot doesn't throw out these numbers all that quickly. So massive change to Locke here. And also they're nerfing his Q nail damage by 10 flat at each rank. I'm going to assume that this is going to be the case for each nail that he lands. So that's a pretty big deal. That's a lot of damage already gone. Then they're also, let's take a look, they're nerfing his W scaling of his W, in the sense that he gets, the more levels he gets in the spell, the more move speed that he gets. And they're also nerfing the level scaling, or at least the skill point scaling of the gray health base. So this is purely nerfs, right? They're nerfing his base HP, they're nerfing his Q damage, and they're nerfing his sustain and his move speed and W. That's massive. I think that this is finally enough to push him off the edge of being OP. And I think that this might even put him in a position where he may not be that good at all. It's a very hard change to really see what's going to happen to Locke after this, but I think they're really trying to gut him. So what I'm trying to understand here is how much do these changes affect his snowball potential, right? Because of course, the base HP matters a lot, right? 35 base HP is an immense amount of damage, immense amount of health. And the nail damage down is also like immense in the way that he trades, right? Is not only his trades, but also his wave clear goes down. So these hits are like massive. And I think that this is definitely going to bring him back down to, I'm going to make a bit of a bold assumption. I think he's going to be like pretty average B tier probably. I think this is a massive change. But I'm going to be really honest. I am not certain about my assessment here. He could be landing up in D tier next to the boys, but he could also still be really good. My assessment in this case is unsure, and I'm just going to put it out there, guys. My guess is that he's not going to be perma-ban worthy anymore. I think he's definitely going to be worse, but I think he could land up anywhere. But keep an eye out on Locke. In 2 weeks, we're going to do another assessment, and we're probably going to have a way better, clearer picture of where he's actually exactly going to be in this tier list. Next up, we've got some changes to Naafiri. So basically, what they're doing is they are nerfing Naafiri's R damage. I understand that because Naafiri gets a lot of damage from her dogs, and the amount of AD that she gets from her W is absolutely insane. The moment she gets onto you, you basically die, especially when you're like even and you're isolated. So them nerfing R, I don't really mind it because it's a single targeted ability. And do I think that she deserves nerfs? Not really for mid lane. For jungle, I think she's pretty strong. So for jungle, I think that's pretty realistic. We put her in the A tier beforehand. She was an A tier champion. Is this gonna change Naafiri really? Let's take a look at the numbers. They're basically R damage goes from 150 to 125. So they're nerfing 25 base damage on the R. And it is from 120% of total AD to 100% bonus AD. It looks like they're just flat out nerfing the numbers a bit. Does this matter much for Naafiri? I don't think is this a massive change? I think it might be a pretty big change because total AD to bonus AD is already a pretty big difference in damage, right? So Naafiri might just lose like 50 to 100 damage on her R. That's kind of what it looks like, doesn't it? Or am I completely reading this wrong? It's really hard to say because I don't really know what these changes mean. My guess, though, is that for mid lane, she is still going to be, like, decent. I don't think that the R changes matter too much for you as a mid laner because, yes, you play for skirmishes with R, of course. Yes, that's the case. But I think that you're still going to be able to just play out the lane just fine. And therefore, I think that Naafiri is going to still be bottom A, maybe next to Locke in B tier, right? She's slightly going to get nerfed, but absolutely still playable for the majority of mid laners. She won't be perfect, especially if she doesn't have a good matchup, but this champ is still absolutely viable. Next up, we have Riven nerfs. Finally, this champ has been so broken on mid lane. It's been pissing me off. Like, this champion is immensely strong with the amount of damage that she deals. She is basically unkillable with her shields, and with her side laning and her ability to build defensive, she becomes like this stat check heavy machine that there's just no counterplay into whenever you play mages. So I'm so happy that they're nerfing this champ. Of course, they already indirectly nerfed Riven by changing the red boots, the new boots. And that, of course, is a small change that was great to have. But she still was incredibly strong. And right now they're hitting Jack of all trades. They're nerfing a little bit of the damage, which is definitely an item that Riven abused, or a rune that Riven abused. And she also gets a bonus AD removed the moment she uses R. And they're nerfing her R damage. And that is really, really, really good. Because this is like only min damage, not max damage probably. I'm not sure what it means, but regardless, the key change is that them nerfing the R bonus AD is absolutely insane because this changes everything, right? General AD nerfs like these, they're really impactful for all-in champs like Riven. You got to keep in mind that Riven is a threshold champ, okay? She, especially versus most mages, the way that she likes to play the game is she needs to get on top of you. And the moment she gets on top of you, she either kills you or she doesn't. If she doesn't kill you, it can be sometimes very punishing for her to do that because she loses her ability to then escape because the moment she goes in, she struggles getting out. So she puts herself very vulnerable. And if she can't get the kill, it's pretty hard for her to then find a new angle where she can get on top of you because it's quite linear. Riven is a pretty linear champion. So these changes, in my opinion, are absolutely fantastic. I like that they're nerfing the base AD and their thresholds. And I think that as a mid laner with Jack of all trade nerfs, the boost nerfs, and direct Riven nerfs, she's definitely going to be hit a little bit. Now, is she going to get removed from the S plus tier? Maybe. I think that these changes may finally be enough to put her into S tier. But I honestly think that she's still S tier, guys. This champ is still immense. She had that much power into her kit that she will still just be an absolutely amazing champion. And I'm going to put her on the top of S tier because I don't think these nerfs are going to hit her that hard that it's going to be unplayable for her. So yeah, still a really strong champion. Sylas. Okay, pretty big. We need to talk about these Sylas changes. The way that we're going to do that is by going back to what they changed to Sylas a few weeks ago. They buffed Sylas by increasing the base damage from Q and then also increasing the initial AP to 45% from 40%. And they also increased a little bit of healing onto the W. Now, Sylas got pretty strong from that point onwards, and we actually put him in the S tier, which I think was a pretty realistic position for us to put him. And what they're basically changing right now is they're reverting the Q part of this buff. So fully the base damage and the scaling part of it is going to get removed. And it's going to be back to the old ways of where we put him. And right now he only has the W increase that he had before. So remember where we put him all these patches ago? He was like C tier level of strength, right? He was pretty awkward. And this Q buff really shot him up. It's a bit unfortunate, right? Because Sylas got only a few patches of glory, and even then we've not really seen him that much in like pro play. I'm pretty sure that Riot wanted these changes so he could be shining a little bit more in pro play. But Sylas is a little bit of a solo queue menace because of how skirmish heavy that he is, of course. So I don't really think that these Sylas changes should have been this extreme. I don't think Sylas deserved a full revert of his Q, and I definitely think that this is going to hit him quite a bit. I think that Sylas with these Q nerfs is going to be probably in B tier. He has the W, the healing changes that are like all right, and I think that this champ is going to be playable, but he's going to get absolutely gutted with these Q changes. Like this Q spell, landing that was so good with the Q max Sylas. Like he loved these changes. What do I think of these changes? Yeah, look, I think that Riot overshot them. So let's put it like this. One thing that I really like that Riot's been doing is that they've been reverting changes that have like maybe overshot or like they weren't happy with, instead of hitting different parts of the champions. So a really good example that I can give is like 1.5 years ago, they changed Syndra, where they gave Syndra a lot more damage in her ult. And then what they did is that they nerfed Syndra in like her base armor. And that was like such a strange change. So they overbuffed Syndra, and then they nerfed her slightly in a place that wasn't necessary before they overbuffed her. So I like that Riot's kind of like reverting some changes, and the idea of it is good. But I would say like this is a slight overshoot. Maybe keep giving him like the 45% AP, remove the base damage. Just give him a little bit of love in that Q spell, because this Q spell is what makes Sylas so flexible. That's the key thing that a lot of people don't understand. Is the reason why Sylas is sometimes really hard to play is because he's so one-dimensional in the way that he's forced to play. He's going in, and the moment he goes in, he can't really play the game anymore. His Q is a spell that allows him to play from distance and gives him a little bit of that extra edge that kind of gives him that flexibility in his kit. So nerfing the Q is, of course, fucking brutal for this champion. B tier. I don't think he's going to be higher than that after the changes. Now, I also want to talk about Azir, because Azir is a champion that we put into C tier, not fully knowing what the bug fixes would do to him. And I think that is actually really good that we break that down, because Azir has not been like getting a massive win rate bonus, but as far as I've seen, as far as I know, I think that the C tier was actually a pretty reasonable place for us to put Azir. So pretty happy with where he's standing. I think he's very, very, very much slightly increasing in win rate. But most importantly, right, he's getting a little bit more games that he's getting played in. So he probably doesn't feel like that terrible anymore. I still heard from some Azir mains that some interactions were still not fully properly set up. But Azir, as far as I know, is definitely, if you find a really good angle, is playable, and he's not absolutely dog shit anymore. So we're going to move on to a few questions that we got in the previous episode. We're going to need to talk about Yasuo, okay? Yasuo S tier is crazy work by Liam Neslind, 4182. Why would Yasuo and S tier not be crazy work? Let's defend Yasuo and S tier. Yasuo defender. I'm not a Yasuo player. Nerf that champ, please, Riot, but he's definitely S tier. Let me explain you why that's the case. So Yasuo is really good on mid lane due to the fact that he has an immensely strong lane, okay? One of the main things that you're going to see that strong mid laners have is they have a strong laning phase that allows them to get the lane control. And whenever you have lane control, you can be making proactive plays whenever you want. And that's going to give you the opportunity to impact the map. So winning lane as a mid laner is already like absolutely just immensely strong. And Yasuo cannot lose lane. He's that overtuned in his lane. He almost has no bad matchups. Like he can win lane versus every single champion. That's what makes this champ so unbelievably OP. Not only that, he has incredibly flexible setups. He can run many different pages. He's a really decent early game skirmisher. And he is incredibly strong in the side lane. And if you can get a winning side lane where you can push. Once again, you get this control, you get the ability to move first to place, and that means that a lot of agency is in your hands. You gotta keep in mind, the way that Yasuo players lose games is not because of the fact that the champ is bad. They lose games because of them making mistakes with the champion. The key thing that I would say is, if there's one word that would link up to Yasuo as a champion, is I would call it agency. Agency is the word that comes to my mind. He has the ability to shape the game towards how he wants to play it. It's just what he decides to do with it that is going to be the difference maker. So Yasuo, because of that agency, is absolutely S tier. Very strong champion. Now let's talk about the other one, Ori D tier. Yeah, why is Ori D tier? And I think for that we got to go into the history books as well. So Riot Games absolutely good at Orianna for solo queue. And the reason why they did that for solo queue is because she was an absolute menace in pro play. She still was a menace in pro play. The reason why she's so good at pro play is because of her agency in the early game and her ability to pair up with the jungle. And she has insane threat with some engaging jungles, and it makes it very easy to get good target access. And it buffs up these bruisers, so the pairings in pro play are just absolutely immense. But she's pretty hard in that case. Like, knowing your role and fighting properly, it requires a lot of coordination. It's not easy. For solo queue, this is a little bit too much. The reason why Orianna is so weak at solo queue is because of what they did to the base HP. Orianna's base HP is immensely low. And solo queue is not as coordinated as pro play. You don't always have perfect pairings with jungle. But most importantly, there's chaos. And whenever you're playing this immensely squishy champion without escapes, with really low base stats, that's when you're running into problems, because you're just going to be dying a lot. And what I see a lot is that in the coaching program that I'm running, right, a lot of players are opting out of playing Orianna because they feel how weak she is. They feel how fast they die. They feel that they're losing the agency, and they're all considering swapping over to Victor. So yeah, she's just nerf pro-gated, guys. She's just pro-gated. She is very, 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 very weak, unfortunately. So yeah, Orianna, D tier, don't pick her up right now. If you want to pick Ori, guys, or you want to play these mages, my recommendation is go for a better classic control mage. Try out Victor. Put your E on clamp cast, and suddenly you're going to love the amount of agency that you have in the game. So it's time to swap it up, Orianna players. Sorry, this champion is too weak, too shit even. She can't do anything. Then we have another question about Mell, right? Mell, also a D tier champ for the exact same reasons as Orianna. Mell is not really for the exact same reasons. Mell is just over-nerfed. Okay, and the reason why Mell is overnerfed is because there's an immense frustration problem with Mell. There's a 33% ban rate for a 46% win rate champion. If you look at the game average, it's even lower, because this champion is really frustrating to verse, okay? And I understand that if you're playing Ahri into Mell, or you're playing like a skill shot mage into Mell, where your key spell can get blocked, and you know what's even funny? That the ban rate's even increasing. Like, that's the crazy part. Mell's, she's not even getting banned less. She's only getting banned more and more and more. Like, people hate this champ, it looks like. I do understand the frustration problem, but the thing with Mell is that there's a little bit of an IQ gap, so to say. Because the reason why Mell's so bad is she may feel hard to verse, and there's definitely going to be situations where her W can be the game changer, but Mell's just really long cooldowns, very high mana costs, very easy to dodge spells in the early game. And this is a recipe where she's not going to get much lane control. Because whenever you play all of these champions here on the top here, right? Even if you play Ahri into Mell, which is supposedly a bad matchup, what you can do is you can just ignore the Mell, attack the wave, and you're going to be a lot more useful in these skirmishes, right? And Mell also, like, it's got massively nerfed on her base stats. This champion is incredibly weak, very, very vulnerable, of course, besides her W. So she doesn't really have any good matchups. She has good matchups if the enemies don't know what they're doing. And unfortunately, that happens more often than not. But I understand that there's a frustration problem with this champion. And I think that Riot absolutely failed with the rework. I think that this is generally a really failed design. Really cool, hyped up champ from Arcane. And I think that the idea is cool with like the W reflect, but it just causes so many problems. And the reason why we see that Mell is just a failed design is because her ban rate is literally increasing with each day, while the champion's win rate is like decreasing, right? She's just not a good champion at the moment. And her ban rate being this high, that means that there's just an immense frustration problem with this champion. Understandably so. So Mell, D tier. Okay, let's reassess some of the champs and let's just do a little bit of a meta rundown of what we've seen over the past 2 weeks, right? So Syndra, absolutely still OP. I love the fact that Riot's not nerfing her. It's a bit unfortunate that I've not been able to like really abuse Syndra at her absolute strongest because I've had a pretty busy 2 weeks. I gotta prepare all my content because I'm leaving on a small holiday with my girlfriend tomorrow. You guys won't see this tomorrow. You guys will see this next week. But I had to prepare a lot of content, so I didn't have a lot of time to climb. I'll probably be DKing as well, which is unfortunate, but that's just the life. Whenever you got stuff to do, you know. It's okay. I couldn't abuse Syndra enough, unfortunately. Maybe, hey, Riot Games, listen up here. I think Syndra needs to not get any nerfs. Keep her like this for at least 4 more weeks. And I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you very much. This champ is bollocks, guys. This champ is so OP with the Q damage. If I would suggest, right, a nerf to Riot to Syndra, I think the way that you nerf this is by slightly chipping back at the Q base damage increases. I think if we slightly nerf this or like revert the base damage and you just keep the AP ratio and the base health, that's all she needs. And then she's going to be solid S tier. I think right now she's OP. So if you want to hit Syndra Riot Games, hit her with the base damage of the Q. I think that's where you got to hit her. This was too strong, in my opinion. The AP ratio, great. Keep that. You want to have her scaling and not buy haste, sure. Keep the base HP. I think that's really good for her. She had pretty low base HP. And you could feel that in a lot of mage v mage matchups. So keep the base HP, keep this, and then you're good. Then you got a very solid mage on your hands, just like Victor. Very, very balanced, guys. But right now she's a bit OP. I think that Riot also needs to nerf Cassiopeia. I think that Cassiopeia is still completely bullshit. This champ cannot lose lane. Really, really, really annoying to verse champ with her immensely short Q cooldown. The interaction with Deathfire Touch is a little bit too OP. So I think that we gotta hit Cassiopeia somewhere as well, guys. I think that Aurora is still really good. Ahri is still absolutely insane. Akali is really good. Definitely the best melee champion that you can pick. Ryze, even though that he's not picked that often, and you won't see him all that much, I still think that Ryze is a really strong champion. I think that this stats don't really do him justice. But the thing is that just a lot of people can't play Ryze. Like, Ryze is really fucking hard. But if you can play Ryze and you know how to pressure in his early game, this champ is absolutely immense. And the reason why I know this is because I've coached like many players over the past few weeks that have played Ryze. And I always try to work on them with the laning phase, but it's too hard for a lot of players. It's too much going on. It's too close quarters combat, and that is very challenging to consistently play out on. And I understand that Ryze laning is very hard. Not only laning, but mid-game options. But if you master it, this champ is really good. I think that all of these champions are generally solid. I played some Wei as well. Wei is really good still. Is there any champs that really stand out to me that deserve higher? No, I honestly think it's a pretty mediocre patch. I'm not too happy with a small amount of changes. I want to see some shake-up in the meta. I want to see some hits to Cassio. Fuck it, hit Aurora, you know? Hit some of these champs, buff some of the weaker stuff. I think that we deserve a little bit of meta shake-up. But you know what the thing is, guys? It's pretty hard to shake up the meta when the mid lane's role is so defined. It's all about just getting lane control and then expanding that throughout the rest of the map and creating that agency. So you see a lot of really strong laners. And this is also a reason why Syndra is now so strong, is that their lane just got massively buffed by the base damage increases, right? Strong laners, strong laner, strong laner, strong laner, strong laner, a strong, post 6, immense laner, strong laner, can get prio. I think this Echo Champ's OP. Strong laner, right? A lot of agency here. You see that the weaker laners, they all get bumped down into the lower tiers. And that's kind of what the meta has been for, I don't know, I think 1.5 years we've had a meta like this. Like the meta has been very still in that regard for mid lane. So yeah, let's see what changes Riot are going to cook up next patch. We got AJ also joining us next patch again. If you guys have any questions about any champions, we're going to go very deep on it in the next patch. We're going to go massive overhaul of the tier list. So let us know down below in the comments and we'll take a look at your questions. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace out.